Hello and welcome to The Stack. This week we discuss London's media moment with Sophie Monaghan-Coombs. We hear also from Nick Shelton, founder and CEO of Broadsheet, and a book celebrating 70 years of John Simons. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. In recent years, with a diminished presence of Time Out and the Evening Standard in London, people were asking who is actually going to report about the city matters or about the latest openings. Well, here is the time, thanks to interesting new outlets, such as Australia's Broadsheet by Nick Shelton, who arrived here in a big way, or even London-centric by ex-Guardian journalist Jean Watterson, or also The Fans, featured recently here on The Stack. To tell me more about this renaissance of London media, here is Monocle's Associate Editor for Culture, Sophie Monaghan-Coombs, who wrote about this on Monocle's new issue. Sophie Monaghan-Coombs, welcome to The Stack. A pleasure to finally have you here on The Stack.
Thanks for having me, Fernando. I'm very excited about it.
It's a pleasure. We have a new Monocle coming out this week as well. And there's a story that I love it because it feels very close to my heart. I mean, we both live in London, right? I think London is having a little moment when it comes kind of to media, actually talking about the city itself. And I say finally, because I was missing that a little bit.
Yeah, I think your perspective is interesting here, Fernando, because you know so much about print and you know so much about how other cities, how they do in terms of how they report on themselves. And as you say, London does not have a very good reputation for it. Obviously, most of the news produced from UK outlets comes from London, but it doesn't really talk about itself that much. And you know, often at the kind of big newspapers, they don't want to do too much London reporting because then everyone in the rest of the country thinks they're completely London-centric and there's a backlash against that. But as you say, I think it feels like there are a lot of kind of smaller, independent, very sort of nifty and agile organisations that are popping up in this moment. So it feels like a bit of a change. And
one interesting one, I think, is one of the main ones in the story is Broadsheet, which is actually came from Australia. And it was with Nick Shelton, which we're going to listen to his interview in a minute. It's quite interesting as well that he wants to come to the market. Clearly, he saw a space for something like that, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty bold move, really. I mean, as we say in the piece, and as I'm sure you got into it in your interview, Nick did used to live in London. He worked here in his 20s and he has now come back. So he is living in the city. But yeah, it's an Australian publication that's done very well. And I think their focus really is doing a slightly kind of sideways, a little bit left field listings and recommendations. And the first issue has now come out. What did you think of it?
I love it. I think I hope to see more and more in print. And you're right, it feels more curated. It's not a simple list. But then there's there's so many new launches in London as well. Sometimes I forget about that as well. I think it was a great launch.
Yeah, I think it is. There is just so much to report
on. Like restaurants and bars.
Exactly. And they are that kind of in that sort of time out, you know, that variety of publication, which is really where you should go and what you should see. And I think they've done that really well. They have, you know, they talk about things that are opening, but they've also got these really interesting, unexpected features. The one that I really enjoyed was looking at how kitchens worked and doing these kind of...
Great piece, that one.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea, looking at the layout of different kitchens at different institutions and how they work for the people working in them. And I just thought that, you know, that's so unusual. That's a real behind-the-scenes look and very creative.
I wonder if you could mention other examples of those kind of new stalwarts of London-centric media.
Yes, so one such one is called London-centric, and I met the man behind it, Jim Watterson. He used to work at The Guardian. He was their media editor, and he started it because he broke the news that the Evening Standard was not going to be daily anymore. And when he did that, he sort of realised that there was this gap for really well-reported, well-researched stories about London. And so he started a Substack. There are quite a few that have started really successful successful Substats in recent months. And he publishes real kind of deep dives once a week. He's got a really good subscriber base. He says that for the people that pay for their subscription, they get access to the editor. And so he puts his email and his WhatsApp number in all of his send-outs. And he just says he gets so many ideas for stories, and everyone is like, I've heard about this. Could you look into it and see if it's true? He did a great story about the foxes that are living in the Google headquarters, the kind of building site. It's not finished, but the foxes that are living up there. He's really passionate about stories about Lime bikes. And I think that, it's really interesting. They've completely changed the transport landscape of the city, and no one else is reporting on them, but they are a business story, they're a public health story. He ran a really interesting story about how many accidents they're involved in. There's so many elements of Lime bikes, and no one was thinking, actually, how are these changing our cities? And are these completely positive? And so I went to meet him in South London, and the first thing we did was to go and look at a bank of Lime bikes so that he could suss them out, which was, it was great to hang out with him. He's a really, really lovely character.
I love stories like this. And of course, I think the fans is mentioned. They've been here on the stack. And it's quite interesting. Even here in the office, there are many fans of the fans as well. And I think what I like about them, they are about London, but they're quite witty. It's quite funny. There's a lot of satire as well. I quite like that.
Yeah, they're definitely they've got an irreverent style, I would say. Yeah, so the fans, they do report on other places in the city, but they're really good at reporting on London, and they've actually started a new email newsletter called Capital Letter, and that is just for their London reporting. And I really like their cultural criticism. I really like their recommendations. They are obviously big fans, as I am, of the pub. And I think there's a lot of space, there's a lot of room for these different organisations, and it's really lovely to see them doing so well.
I like the pub as well. Finally, Sophie, of course, you edit the culture pages of the magazine. What else can people find in the November issue? I wonder if you can give us a little debrief. Yes,
I would love to. There is, I'll kind of just very quickly go through what's in my section this month. The first one, I think, is of a story that will be of interest to you. It is in Tokyo, a new arts and retail project, which is called Squat, Chimera Art Centre. The photos are just beautiful. They've kind of utilised this unused space underneath a railway, and it's a library, an exhibition space, a vinyl shop. It's a bit of everything, and it's just really beautifully designed.
Perfect.
And then the other story, unfortunately, is one of my own. I reported there was a story that was big in the news recently about this Dutch journalist finding a piece of artwork, a Nazi looted artwork in Argentina. And so I spoke to him, talked all about that story, but then I also went to meet an organisation that look into stolen artworks. That's their day-to-day life. And they made a little timeline of some interesting art thefts throughout the ages. So I really enjoyed reporting on that piece. It was very fun.
We all love an art theft. I mean, we don't love it, but we are very curious.
They make for great stories.
Exactly,
they really do. Yeah.
Exactly. Sophie, thank you so much. And now we're actually going to hear an interview with Nick Shelton, founder and publisher of Broadsheet Media. Nick, first of all, welcome to the London market. I mean, we needed something like Broadsheet here, but give us a little introduction, because for Australians and Kiwis as well, it's a household name already. So It's been a decade already.
16 years.
Wow, 16 years. Yeah. Almost 2 decades. Then.
Almost 2 decades. We're on the way.
And so tell us about the size of the operation and what you guys do, in fact.
So we are sort of the main, largest culture publisher in Australia. We're an independent brand, started in Melbourne. It's funny, the London thing is a bit of full circle, because it was when I was working here as a barista post-uni in my sort of early 20s, as many Aussies do. I got to London and found that there was this exciting, dynamic, cosmopolitan metropolis. It was so exciting, but really difficult to kind of figure out where to go and what to do. And this was like 2005 or 6, let's say. And I just sort of found myself craving a resource, especially as sort of digital media was starting to take off and proliferate, a resource that would just sort of cut through it and tell me, this is what to do, this is where to go, with a tight curation, with good taste, that suited someone who wanted to go out and get involved. And I sort of had this idea but didn't think much of it, went back to Australia, wanted to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and found that Melbourne, particularly, where I'm from, was going through this cultural boom. You know, Melbourne's now very well known for its food culture and its coffee culture, but at the time it was just beginning to emerge. So I sort of, potentially quite naively, plucky 25-year-old, just said, I'll do it. So I did my research and I started a small media business, and it took off pretty quickly. So we were then in Sydney a couple of years later, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth after that, more recently in New Zealand. And it's been terrific. So as I say, we're the sort of maybe second largest independent publisher. We've never had to raise money, which it's been great and sort of unusual as a media business. We're focused on food and drink, fashion, art, entertainment, travel, some wellness, all the cultural elements of living in your city.
I love what you said about full circle here in London, because of course I was going to ask you, why now? Why you're entering the London media market? But I have to say, from the consumer point of view here, London needed that in a way.
Yeah.
So tell us why in 2025 finally you decided to bring the brand here.
So part of it was just where we were internally as a business. We're in a great space. We have an amazing team and leadership team. We grow every year. And we were sort of contemplating, where does our next really big growth effort come from? And the idea of taking this internationally is something that's always appealed to me. And as you say, I think we see London as being the most exciting cultural city in the world right now. That's definitely not a view that is shared by everybody. A lot of people here think that it's a really tough time for culture businesses in London, and no doubt it is. But we're perceiving this sort of friction, this energy that's bubbling away and getting really exciting. And we're sort of seeing the beginning of something really exciting from a cultural perspective in London. And of course, London is a city that's always culturally exciting, but something really exciting is happening right now. However, we don't see a media landscape that is here to cover it in the way that we think that we cover it. So we think there's a big opportunity for us to do that here.
I agree, and there is a gap for something that Broadsheet does, but it doesn't feel very, I don't know if this word exists, but press releasey, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, one of the observations we're making about the market as we're building here is that there are the end of the market that is heavily either press release or sort of best of based, maybe like evergreen Google content based. So best bakeries here, this thing's happening there. That is reasonably well catered for. And at the other extreme, we have some fabulous publishers here like the FT How to Spend It and the Observer Food Monthly that have been doing a great job for their audiences in weekend supplements in the papers. But what we're finding is missing is that very journalistic, very reportage media dedicated to culture. Yes, we always will do, the utility of here's the best place for a coffee if you're looking for a coffee. But we love reporting. We have a journalistic approach to our editorial. We'll never take a press release and say, thanks very much, we'll run it. We'll receive information, whether it's from our sources or from a PR, but we'll always say, okay, well, why is this important? Why is this interesting? Why is this worth knowing about? And we'll go back and we'll ask questions, we'll interview, we'll ask around. It's not about sort of churning out bits of news.
What's the size of your operation here in London? Of course, it's the beginning, right? Yeah. So tell us a bit more. And are you based here in London now as well?
Yeah. So I am based here. I moved across in April with my wife, and we're spending the majority of our time here, but certainly spending a lot of time back in Australia as well, which is a bit of fun. The Australian team is about 80 people, mostly based in Melbourne, but also has a significant base in Sydney as well. And then in London, we're about 6 at the moment. We'll probably be 10 by the end of the year, and we're just a month in.
Well, I want to talk to you about print as well, of course. But one curiosity, I think it's quite interesting. London, is a very powerful market editorially. And it's nice that you're bringing an Australian perspective to it as well, which is, I would have to say, is unusual in this type, but I think it's very cool. So tell us a bit more about that perspective.
The way we think about Broadsheet is it's a lens. And what we see through that lens depends on what we're looking at. And we learned that very early when we went from Melbourne to Sydney. We were probably a 6-person company then. We thought, we'll go to Sydney. We've had success in Melbourne. And what we found was that Sydney was a very different market to Melbourne, even though at first glance it looked similar. The way people live is quite different. The interests they have is different. Sometimes the tone of voice that resonated was different. For example, Sydney's a very outdoor city. Melbourne is more of an indoor city. The weather is just one of the many things that make it different in the way you socialize. Sydney is what was perhaps ahead of the curve. Melbourne's potentially caught up now, but would socialize through exercise. So going for walks or going to Pilates was something that works very well in Sydney and did in Melbourne for a long time. So we sort of quickly figured out that we have this approach of a lens, and through that lens is what we think about as quality, what we think about as interesting, what we think about as worth talking about. And we're taking that approach here. So we're not coming to London saying, hey, London, this is what a bunch of Australians think about interesting about London. We're sort of taking this lens and this sort of perspective, and we'll bring it here. And the way we're doing that is we're blending our DNA. So we're bringing our ways of doing things and our processes, and we'll bring some of our team members. but we're matching that with the expertise of London. So no one here is pretending, or no one coming from Melbourne is pretending they know London better than a Londoner. And so we're working with, and we've hired all these really phenomenal London journalists and editors and contributors and photographers and videographers to really bring the best of that perspective to London.
We don't mind an Aussie perspective here. Even if you walk around the office, you hear a lot of kind of...
A few accents.
From down under. So tell us a bit more the commercial strategy. So it's out now. I know you have social media, and I've been reading already a few tips here and there. But tell us about the print side of things. How important would that be for Broadsheet?
Print is important to us. We love print. We were founded certainly as a digital media business, and that's the, most people will always encounter us through digital. That's where our commercial model is certainly. However, I have not discovered a better way to build brand in media than through print. So probably within 3 or 4 months of launching in Melbourne, we reflected and said, okay, so we built this website, we've got all this great content, now we need to make sure that people get there. And we decided the best way to do that was to produce a printed publication and to distribute that freely and make it beautiful and engaging and sort of a showpiece of what we do. And that worked brilliantly. And still now, over a decade and a half later, I still have people tell me that they discovered us first in print all those years ago. And so we're bringing that same approach here. Often in digital, your audience is disintermediated through a third party. Not always, but often. So that means that someone is discovering you through Instagram, through Facebook, through Google, or through one of the other platforms, Apple News maybe. And it's the algorithms that decide how often and what those audiences see. And so years ago, when the Facebook traffic madness was at its sort of zenith, we'd find we'd be working long time and really hard on these reported out features, lots of interviews and especially commissioned photography and maybe some video. You'd be really proud of something. But maybe it was a small story. Maybe it was a really small, beautiful, crafted story that we thought was important and interesting. And then we'd sort of hear about some brand is giving away free donuts down the street, and we'd sort of take 10 seconds to tell the audience, hey, if you're interested in this, here's a free donut place. And we'd find that the free donut place went through the roof in terms of traffic, and that's what Facebook wanted to see because it'd be comments and shares and likes and the whole thing. And we think to ourselves, God, we've worked so hard on this story. This is not what our brand is meant to be about, but we're sort of potentially falling the trap of writing too many of these sort of viral stories that, for the clicks. And we were very careful about not wanting to become that publisher. And what we thought was that actually print is the place that we can control who we are as a brand and as a publisher. So the cover story is the thing that we think warrants the most time, energy, resource, storytelling, investigation. And then everything in it between is also a reflection of our values and what we think and what we care about. So it's the right mix of food versus fashion versus travel. It's the right mix of a quick snack for a piece of content versus a deep dive. And so we think that, as I say, is the best way to build a brand. And what we find is that that's also a lean back experience. They're distributed freely in cafes, bars, shops, hotels, some workplaces, some clubs, members clubs. And we hope that people will pick it up while they're waiting for their coffee or while they're waiting for a friend. And they'll sit back and they'll become immersed in this lovely experience that we've created with them. Whereas online often becomes a bit of a lean forward experience where you've got your mouse in your hand and you're clicking away trying to find something or trying to quickly get through something while you're sort of on your emails at the same time. So we love print and we think it definitely plays a role and we'll continue to do it.
That's beautifully said. And you have a good print run for the first issue. So how is going to work the distribution? As you said, so are you going to select a few places that you think it would fit the brand? So even that you have control as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, we want it to be in places that we like and want to celebrate and sort of be a part of. And we do that in partnership with these venues. It's a big project, but it's a nice one.
And can you subscribe as well to Broadsheet digitally?
So you can certainly subscribe to our newsletters. In Melbourne, Sydney, and Australia, we have a whole suite of them. In London, we just have our starting one, but that will build out. And we love newsletters too. We think newsletters are similar to print in that we can manage the audience experience in the way that we think best works for the audience. So we're looking at some columnist newsletters. So if you just want to hear from this columnist and you want to make sure that you never miss it every week, we can do that. Subject specific. If you think food is okay, but really what you want to do is you want to figure out what our take on shopping is or on fashion, then you can subscribe to that newsletter. So that's something we'll be building in this market over time.
And Nick, I'm just going to complain about something general about media, living in London for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
That sense of curation has been a bit lost. Of course, in the past, we had Time Out. Even the newspapers that had amazing guides, where to eat, where to go out in London, even cinema listings. Mm-hmm. I feel a bit lost, frankly, you know. So that's why I think there's such a nice space for Broadsheet. Actually.
Yeah, that's exactly how we see it. We just see London particularly is such an enormous town. Like, oh my God, it's big. You could never get to all of it. especially when you're thinking about everything from food to theatre to fashion. We cover travel as well. So think about all the different places you can go on a plane from London. It's just infinite. It's endless. So we see our role has always been, but is almost especially now, about curation. It's about what do we want the Broadsheet reader to know about this week or today.
And I need to ask, what about events? Is something that Broadsheet is looking into it, especially here in London as well?
Yeah, events are important to us. Again, a great way to build community and engage with the brand and express the values we have as a brand. So we do a number of different kinds of events. In Melbourne and Sydney, we've just completed our Broadsheet Dine Out Festival, which is a food festival that took place across Melbourne and Sydney over about 5 days in each city. And that was about us working with restaurants and other hospitality venues to create really special events and moments and products. And we'd sort of support that and have people sort of go out and engage. And we did that very specifically during the winter, so in August in Australia, where hospitality venues are finding it a bit tough. So really to support people to get out and get involved. So we'll do something like that here in London, certainly in time. We've done pop-up restaurants in the past. My favourite was a pop-up, the Broadsheet restaurant, which we did for 6 weeks in Melbourne. You would go in, it would be breakfast, lunch and dinner for about 6 weeks, and every item on the menu, and it would rotate, was by a different chef or a different restaurant. So you could literally get the best of Melbourne through one meal. And it might be that you're having one thing, I'm having another thing, our friend is having another. For main course, we have something again, and we have drinks, and they're from the best bars. So that was a really fun thing to do. Again, we might do that in London. We also do smaller events. So we have a program called Editor's Previews, and we work with, it could be a restaurant, it could be a gallery, it could be really anything. And the idea is that as it opens, or even preferably before it opens, we book it out just for our readers. So you and I can go and we can experience a restaurant before anyone else has got a chance to try it, and we can be part of that, what we call the beautiful chaos of a restaurant opening or a exhibition opening. And, our readers tell us they love the social capital, to be able to say to their friends, have you tried this place yet? Have you tried that place? I got to go there before it opened, and it's a fun experience.
And sorry, I have to say, because you're from Melbourne, I keep thinking about Apollo Inn, that amazing restaurant, you know. That's what I associate with Melbourne, actually. It's a beautiful place. That's
a great spot. That's an Andrew McConnell bar. He's a very clever guy, knows what he's doing.
And what about something that I've been asking all my guests here on the Stack, the usage of AI? Do you have any strong views on that, or how does Broadsheet connect with AI in that sense?
Well, it's such a big topic that we have lots of views on it. Some of them are strong and some of them are emerging. We certainly are not creating any content with AI.
Good.
And we believe that over time and in due course that's going to be a differentiator for us. There's already so much crap on the internet that AI is producing that having a human-formed thought piece of content is going to be something that makes us stand out. That's really important. On the other hand, we're thinking about how AI overviews, whether it's through a ChatGPT or Google or anyone else, and they're just sucking up all this information, all this copyright that others have spent countless hours, dollars and pounds and blood, sweat and tears producing, and they just get to keep it and throw it back. That's definitely going to upset the media ecosystem, and already is. And we feel strongly that that shouldn't be allowed to happen. But then on the other hand, we haven't done this yet, but we're working on projects where, can we use a really powerful search function within our publication so that you can go to Broadsheet and type in, I'm looking for a cafe in Marylebone to meet a friend at after 6 p.m. And it can read all of our content and just our content and return you something that we've written about or that we'd recommend. So there are some powerful use cases there, but I think it's all still to emerge.
And finally, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you been anywhere nice here in London? That perhaps you can say something that's been featured recently.
I have been many
places.
Many nice places in London. I'm fortunate that's part of my job. You know what? I had on the bank holiday weekend in August, my wife and I just snuck off on the Monday and we had a lunch up at the counter at Mountain in Big Street. And I've been there obviously a few times before. It's a great spot. But we had a very, very good lunch. So that one keeps going back for me.
Good to go on a bank holiday as well.
Yeah.
Listen, Nick, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That was Nick Shelton from Broadsheet. And for more on that, go to broadsheet.com. Now we're going to mix our media a little by folding a little fashion between the hardcovers of a delightful new book. Well, I say a little fashion, it's actually a whole lot, because the book in question, titled John Simons, Since 1955, is a new book that celebrates 70 years of one of London's most beloved outfitters for fans of stylish Americana, mod style, classic tailoring, and irresistible accessories. John's son, Paul Simons, and his colleague, Kinara Pegorini, made the 30-step journey from the wonderful John Simons on Chiltern Street to Midori House to speak to Robert Bound about squeezing 70 years of cool into a handsome little hardback.
Most people would throw a bit of a party and feel terrible the next day. You threw a party at the 100 Club, but you've also, rather brilliantly, we talked with Paul in a separate programme about the John Simons Volume 1 LP, Giacomo Smith and his Modernist Quintet record. But Kinara, you designed the sleeve and the whole kind of wonderful idea of it. Before we talk about the amazing book that also sits in front of us, which is Stack Relevant, tell us a little bit about the look and feel you were going for this beautiful album.
Well, I mean, the shop has such a history within music and art and clothes, and I think John said it himself, you know, that he sees them as sort of one entity.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really important to capture the shop itself and, you know, what we represent and the context of the time, you know, the clothes were alive. And yeah, I sort of was inspired by a Vera Spencer piece that sits in John's own living room. And she was a modernist artist, sort of also abstract expressionist artist in the 50s and 60s. And I was really taken by, this piece that John has. And I basically just wanted the cover to be very colourful and, you know, striking. Yeah, and it just reminds me of the colours that I see in the shop. And yeah, I just wanted it to reflect that.
Yeah, it's got these kind of lovely primary colours that are kind of key into that Ivy League style. There's boldness, there's such a playfulness with this kind of design as well, right? This kind of modernist design. It's very witty. It looks almost like a Saul Bass movie title sequence.
I think, did
well,
you do
right?
a collage?
Like that.
I did, I actually hand collaged it. So I took strips from magazines and stuff and, you know, really worked it. And I did so many different variations of little squares together and lines, and you know, it took me a long time to finally get to this arrangement.
It's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you so
People
much.
will be able to go online as we're talking and check out this beautiful album cover that you've designed.
Thank you.
So, top marks for this amazing thing. So, how many of these did you press by the way, guys?
500.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked
limited.
in another show about how people will feel that this is something they found in a second-hand record shop 50 years after the fact.
Yeah.
And one day they will.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's turn our attention, as we're on a programme called The Stack, which is all about printed media, to the wonderful book, which is called John Simons Since 1955. This beautiful, again, geometric kind of green cover, modernist cover, that again is your work, Kinara, that we're talking about today.
Well, actually,
we
were talking with the guys
at
at Real Art Press, who are obviously amazing, and it was so nice that they came to us with this project. But we were sort of sitting on different ideas for the cover, you know, we think of a cover of John, and eventually, I was actually going through the drawers in the shop and I found this piece of work that Paul had made. Was it for A-level?
I think probably, around that time. 17, 18.
And it was just this striking green with this red, and I was just thought, Paul, this is amazing. This is it. This is the cover. And as well, I think it sort of links quite nicely with the vinyl and, you know, the language that we're sort of putting out at this time. So, and then the guys at Real Art Press, Tony and Graham, they were both like,
it's
beautiful,
it.
and it works so well on this quite small format.
It was quite a hard process working out the cover, actually. We were kind of going back and forth with lots of different things. And
the royalties you demanded apparently were absolutely sky. That's the main sticking point.
But when we did find that image, Kinara liked it, and then I was like, it does look quite good, and that was it. Everyone liked it. So
there's something about keeping it in the family, which I don't want to overstate, but it is a rather lovely.
I'm happy as well.
It's a rather lovely thing.
Yeah.
And inside, you've got the inside front and inside back covers are your colleague Sean. You tell the story, because we've got characters well known and not so well known leaning up against the inimitable door with the beautiful, you know, dressed dummies. But talk us through some of the things.
Don't talk about the shop staff like that.
Well, you know, I think
some of the things we see on the front, inside front and inside back. There's some wonderful, some good looks.
So many characters
rendered quite small. But some proper characters in there. And I always felt like, as we were talking with Paul before about how it feels like a bit of a scene and a bit of a club, and I felt like that's kind of what you've captured. It's a bit photo boothy.
I think that the doorway shot is just such a nice thing that we do, and we post it on Instagram, and it's just a nice way of telling the story of every customer that walks through our door. And our customers are everything to the shop, and they really, for 70 years, we've had, support from old customers and then new faces walking in. So we just felt that it was important in the book to voice that and for them to be included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also they're a real expression of Sean as well, those, because it was kind of his idea at the start, and then it's just he's got this way of putting people at ease and them having fun and laughing in the door, and then he kind of takes a shot, and it's very much like his, I don't know, I suppose it's his kind of artwork addition to the book. Yeah,
it is.
It's very natural. It's not an overworked idea. It just feels like everyone's got a minute of their time when they're on the way out, and it's a lovely
When someone
gesture.
looks great with something they put on in the shop, Sean will usually say, let's do a doorway shot.
Yeah.
Most people are up for it. So.
Yeah, someone has only said no to me once.
A customer that like to keep their privacy, right?
Exactly.
Very shy. I don't see your customers being particularly shy. I think this is on your Instagram, maybe it's in the book as well, is Peter Robinson, who's a football photographer of many years standing. And you ran some of the shots of him with, it's like Bobby Charlton taking a corner. It's all sorts of
But he's incredibly humble and...
But he's
not
such a cool guy. But he looks like he sums up quite a lot of that mod thing, that kind of...
Yeah. He's always been very into his clothes.
Yeah.
And I think... that's what inspired his career, as he wanted to take pictures of George Best because he just thought he looked so amazing.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, that's
so he did take pictures of George Best when he was very in his teens, I think.
Yeah,
he was very young. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, Canary, you've kind of mixed up sort of ancient and modern in here, or 50s and contemporary? Yeah. We've got John himself kind of pitted against Tony Curtis in a tweed cap. We've got the inimitable Bill Evans matched against Max Harrison. One of your regulars. So there's various things in here. So would you mind, if it's not too much trouble, if it's not too strange, to talk us through a couple of the spreads maybe in the book and the kind of ideas that you guys were having and discussing as you were putting the book together?
I think when Tony and Graham from Real Art Press came to us with the idea, the imagery that they were interested in was, older archive pieces and sort of relating that to what's currently happening. So I think making comparisons between that is like a focal point of the book. And I think what's nice about, what we do, humbly, is that we always shoot customers and friends of the shop, people who have known us for years. So everyone in the book is a friend of the shop. So we've got, Jamie Newton, who's wearing an amazing herringbone ivy jacket next to a picture of Steve McQueen, who's also wearing a nice tweed.
He's doing it pretty well.
Yeah. And then archive photos of John, which are really nice because I think a lot of people have never really seen these. And as well,
there's a nice archive one of my dad sitting with a couple of girls, because I think they're pretty young in that photo, next to a car, and then that's compared to one of JFK.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it just works. And even the modern photos that we've used, like so many of them kind of matched up with older images as well. It's a really nice,
it's a lovely way of doing it. And it tells you that style is timeless, right? And that modernism especially is a timeless look.
I think it illustrates how timeless that look is particularly.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you could do that with many other looks, if any other looks.
And you've got you've put a bit of history in there at the front, Kanara, of kind of John's kind of formative years setting up the store and having his market stall and all the different bits and bobs as well. So some fascinating stuff for deep dive fans of the store and what it's come from. I guess there's all that stuff, but taking us right up to the present day as well. I mean, it's a gorgeous kind of artifact. How tough, though? I mean, you've done it beautifully, and there's patterns for things. There's old American ads for different brands in there as well. How tough, if the job was to put this store and 70 years of its existence and all its lovely customers and all the rest of it into a book? It's a stout, handsome, 200 pages or so? Book. What was your guys' guiding principle in putting it together? Like, how do you pour 70 years of a store and its clientele and its style into a stocky, very handsome little book like that?
Yes, well, basically Tony and Graham designed it, but me and Paul helped edited it. So, they sort of took the lead, and then they had this amazing archive of images that obviously are related to the shop's history. So they sort of did that. And it was our job to sort of take what we have and also include that. But it definitely wasn't easy. I spent some time on the phone to John, and every time I would call him, he would tell me a new anecdote or something new about, the shop's history.
Has it gone to print yet?
It's quite hard to keep him on one story.
He's got so much to say, and obviously such a rich history that, on the phone to him, he sort of just says one thing and then a bit of new information next time. So yeah, it was also nice. I learned so much about the shop and what we've done making this book, so it's also been a delightful project for me.
One point we had everything spread out in the basement of the shop, kind of every page spread out on the floor.
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth, moving things around.
It was very hands-on.
And there would always be, have you seen this image that we just found in a drawer? And we're like, oh no, that one really needs to go in the book. And we were driving Tony at Real Art Press crazy because we would give him another image that we're like, right, this has to be in, and it's kind of right at the last moment. So finding those images was great, but definitely a tricky thing is there isn't that much imagery around of the old shops and interiors and of customers in, just because people weren't taking photos. It was a commercial business. It wasn't a gallery. It was there to pay bills. And so there wasn't a huge amount of
collateral
material
around.
that we could delve into. But we found some nice stuff. So,
well, you've done a beautiful job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On the book, John Simons, since 1955. And it's got this beautiful cover by the young Paul Simons.
Yes.
Perhaps fittingly, the book ends with a lovely picture of John in the store, beautifully lit. Looks kind of like he's awaiting some Christmas custom there. And it is, as we board the log flume towards the season, it is such an amazing place to shop in all seasons. But it's got some pretty good tweeds in there. We should tell people as well. Kanara and Paul from John Simons, thank you very much for talking us on The Stack.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, Paul and Kinara. John Simons, since 1955, is out now. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Christy O'Grady. If you have any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fb@monocle.com. And remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, you can always listen again at monocle.com or subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.